Hi, my name's Will Courtney. Welcome to Complete Connected Care. At Circle Health, we use the phrase complete connected care quite a bit. What does it really mean to you? Well, at Lowell General Hospital and across the Circle Health system, we want to do more than just provide the best care for you when you're injured or sick. We want to empower you to take control of your own health, which is why we offer health and wellness programs online and in this magazine, For Your Health, which lands in your mailbox, and continued access to urgent care, diagnostic testing, and imaging at outpatient centers like Circle Health Westford, and local access to Tufts Medical Center specialists without having to drive to downtown Boston. We connect that care with a shared medical record, meaning every caregiver you see in the Circle Health network has access to the same information, keeping everyone, including you, on the same page with your health. As we tape today's show, it's February, which is American Heart Month, so we're going to look at the importance of heart health. With us today is Jeff Stevens, who many of you know as Westford's health director. Heart health is a big deal to Jeff because he underwent heart surgery for a blocked artery last year at age 46. He's going to tell us his story and the lifestyle changes he's making to give him a healthier future. We'll be right back with Jeff. Welcome back to Complete Connected Care. I'm here with Jeff Stevens, Health Director of the town of Westford. Jeff, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So we're here to talk a little bit today. You do a lot of things in town, I know. Today we're going to talk a little bit about your story and your personal experience with a health scare. And February is Heart Month. We at Circle Health and here in town, they do a lot of preventive work because heart disease is preventable. Why is heart health important? Well, let's do a couple of statistics here. So heart disease is the number one reason cause of death here in this country, both men and women. Why is that? 1 in 3 adults in the United States has high blood cholesterol. Millions of Americans have high blood pressure. 1 in 3 adults is considered obese. More than 37 million people smoke. And then only 1 in 5 people meet the physical activity guidelines of 150 minutes of moderate activity each week. As a result, every 40 seconds, someone has a heart attack. Jeff, you were lucky. That did not happen to you,
I did not have a heart attack.
It could have if you didn't catch it early.
Very easily.
And so this happened about a year ago, right? You had a scar. Maybe you can tell us how that all happened.
So sure. I'd love to start by telling everybody, get checked out if you're not really sure how you feel. But my particular story is I was an active person. I coached a lot of hockey teams. I still played both street hockey and ice hockey, and I thought I was great. What I learned was I wasn't. And it's interesting, after you have an incident or you have an episode like I did, you realize that months prior there were lots and lots of signs. And I did not even think about having a heart issue. What happened to me was there was a snowstorm on January 4th, and it was a pretty bad one. It was cold, and we got a significant amount of snow. And I sat in my office the night before this storm, and I actually wrote an article that went into a town newsletter about heart health, pay attention to the signs, snow shoveling is a dangerous, rigorous activity, and you should pay attention to what your body's doing if you're out there working too hard. Well, that particular storm, work was called off because it was so bad out, and I'm out shoveling snow. And as I'm working, I'm realizing, boy, this is a lot tougher than I'm used to. I mean, I'm 46, I'm not that old, I am pretty active, I should be able to clear the snow in my walkways and driveways, and it was a difficult thing for me to do. And I wasn't used to that. So I'd go in the house and I'd rest, and then I would go back out and do some more work, and I would notice that I had a little bit of anxiety, and it was about the snow shoveling, and I couldn't figure out why. And I ended up getting my work done, and I sat in my house, and I kind of did work from home, because it's really not a true work day off. I'm trying to keep busy and stay ahead, and I just felt anxious all day. And as that night wore on, I ended up having to go to a wake of a family friend, and I really felt uncomfortable there, to the point where I decided that I went home, I got my wife, and I said, I think I need to get looked at. And when I got to the hospital, I found out I didn't have a heart attack, which was good, so I felt better then. And they ran quite a few tests on me from the 4th all the way through the 5th, right up to doing a stress test. And in that stress test, I found out that I was able to complete the entire time. In fact, the woman that ran the stress test says, well, if there's something wrong with you, it's not your heart.
Oh.
And there's no way it could be. Nobody goes 10 minutes and finishes this that has a heart issue. Mm-hmm. So I ended up going back down to my room, and they were going to discharge me and refer me to my primary care. And all of a sudden, the cardiologist came bursting into the room. We need you to stay here, and we're going to send you down to Worcester. Wow. And what I found out was, and you talk about your heart racing at that point, cardiologist tells you you're sticking around, you know something's up. Mm-hmm. They sent me down to Worcester, and what they found out is in my stress test, my heart rate was never coming down after I was doing activity. It was staying high. Even though I felt fine because I was fairly active and it was not unusual for me to have a high heart rate, I thought I was okay.
Right.
They sent me down to Worcester, they catheterized my heart, and what they found was a 70% blockage in my left main artery.
Wow. Which could have been tragic if it got much worse.
Yeah, I mean, it's a scary thing to see on the screen.
Yeah.
And my doctor at the time took a good look at it and said, we could stent this and you'll be out of here tomorrow, or we can fix it right and you'll have hopefully a full, normal, healthy life.
And that's partly because you're young enough where it's a long time to have a stent if you're presumably going to live a long time.
Right. I mean, if you plan on living more than the life of the stint, you want to go for the bigger surgery.
So you had open heart surgery?
I had open heart surgery at 46. Wow. And waiting for that to occur, you start thinking an awful lot. Mm. And you start thinking about what could I have done. And that's really the 4 days after I had to wait between surgery and being diagnosed. I sat in a hospital bed and I thought about what went wrong.
Yeah.
So I started asking questions to my family. Do we have a family history of heart issues? And it turns out that I did have some relatives that did have heart issues back in the 70s that, well, my family, I don't want to say forgot about, but wasn't never really on the front burner this many years later. And the interesting thing I found out is heredity may play a factor, but it's not always a factor.
Yeah.
I started thinking about what were some of the things that I felt prior to this, weeks before, months before.
Yeah, what were some of those signs that now you look back and say, wow, that might have been more than I realized?
So some of the things that I particularly noticed were it was getting tougher to do things, and I started putting weight on that I didn't normally put on, and it started kind of adding, and I wasn't changing my life that much. I was still active, at least I thought I was, and I was just it was about 10 pounds that I put on in that past year that shouldn't have come on that quickly. So
Sure.
I attributed that to having a new job in Westford and just sitting at my desk and not doing as much as I should, and stress level increases when you're trying to operate a department. And that's where I said, it's not my heart, it's
Right.
just all these other things.
Oh, and as we get into our 40s, I'm 48, that we suddenly think, oh, well, that's what happens when we get older, right? We
Yeah,
start
and
gaining weight.
it's an easy trap to fall into.
To rationalize, yeah.
So when I was playing hockey, I was noticing that after games, I was seeing swelling in my ankles. And I was starting to see a little bit of swelling in my wrist. And I was, the same thing, attributing that to, oh, you're out of shape, you got to work a little bit harder. Yeah. And I was finding myself more tired, and I was finding myself to be anxious. And I didn't know why those things were happening. And I was dismissing them as all job-related, all activity-related, and just comes with getting older, and right. I've got to deal with that. Mm-hmm. And those are some key signs that you'd have to, one thing I learned is you've got to pay attention to your body.
Yeah.
And if it's telling you things different than you're not normally used to feeling, well, it's time to get looked at. And that's where people really need to get to their doctors and say, hey, I'm feeling different, I'm noticing this, get an EKG, have them do the echocardiogram,
right.
Make sure you know what your blood pressure numbers are.
One thing we talk about a lot, don't be afraid to ask questions. Go to your doctor every year. Those things, especially as you get older. I skipped a year with mine, and I know that when I got back, I was almost scared to find out, okay, now I've had 2 years of not getting looked at, what's going on? Because as we get older, sometimes it's too busy. We just say, I'm not going to bother. But even just to get your blood pressure checked, to get screenings, takes 2 seconds. We have health fairs at Circle Health. We have health fairs around our different communities. You can go to an urgent care here in Westford. They'll check your blood pressure. They'll check you out if you're not feeling right. So a good but you learned the hard way, obviously, right?
I learned the hard way, and I thought I was good. And you know, I am always advocating for people to do healthy things and healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
Some of those things I wasn't even doing myself.
Right.
And you know, one of the old adages, the shoemaker's kids don't have shoes. And I was one of those people that's telling people what the best thing to do is, and I wasn't always taking my own advice.
And the older we get, we're creatures of habit, right? So we kind of get into our routines. We do, and especially with work and families, and it's hard to change those things like all at once. And so, so you have your surgery, and what's recovery like after that? How long were you down for?
So when I was down, I mean, I was in the hospital for only 3 days after my surgery. I recovered very, very quickly from the actual surgery, where they let me home. And my doctor said, I'd let you go home after 2, but I just can't bring myself to do it. He's like, you're sticking around for another day. And I attributed that to, because I was active and I was very young, my body acclimated to that bypass surgery very quickly. And what I ended up having was a single bypass that technically is a double bypass. They took the 2 chest arteries out of my chest, the lima and the rima, the right and the left, and they bypassed around where the blockage was, and I had to recover from that. And the interesting thing is, when you do that, you all of a sudden become very tired. The condition and the ability you had to move is gone, because if you imagine your arteries being a fire hose and you block one of those up, they're taking small garden hoses to go around the blockage. Okay. And what they have to do now is you have to slowly increase your activity, so those arteries will get back to a normal size where your body can pump a normal amount of blood, and you can then start being more active again. And that takes some time, and you have to go slow.
Yeah.
So my recovery started about 7 to 8 weeks at home. And I sat there, and I would get up and walk every day a little bit, and I would do the stairs. And at first, the stairs were very tiring. And now, obviously, they're not, but that took time. It took weeks and months to build up to the ability to go up and down the stairs and not be tired.
Wow.
And get outside and walk up my hill and get as far as I could before I had to stop and rest. So that took a lot of time to get to there. I was able to return to work after a couple of months, but only part-time. And it took an awful lot of energy just to get to work, to do part of my day, and then I would have to go home and I would crash and I'd be done and rest.
Wow.
But the one biggest thing that's changed is a lot of the foods that I've eaten.
Yeah. Well, and that's what was the difference before, when you were not worried about this? Were you a bad eater? Were you just sort of not paying as much attention?
I would say nobody likes to think they're a bad eater, but you think about some of the choices you were making. Yeah. Sure, did I eat my vegetables? I did, but I also had all the cheeseburgers, and I had, when you're moving kids from place to place to place, you're having that pizza and you're having that fast food. And you eat more of it than you think. Yeah. And when you were at lunch at the office, and maybe you'll go down to the local sub shop and you're going to grab a sandwich or something like that, and you think the calorie intake that you're taking in and the carbs you're taking in, it's significant, and your body doesn't want that stuff as much. And that's one of the things that I have now had to change.
So how did you you had a year to really sort of, or months of sort of recovery to kind of tell yourself, okay, we got to do things differently here. Did it take a little while to find those things that you like, and how were you able to do it?
Well, some things were real easy. I mean, I cut out a lot of dairy immediately, which wasn't real hard for me to do. In fact, I even stopped drinking coffee because the caffeine will raise your blood pressure. Sure. So I switched to things like decaf tea. That wasn't a hard switch. I would add lemon. There's the flavoring I'm looking for. Yeah. I was really looking for low salt, low fat foods that I like. And it's a lifestyle change, but I won't call it the end of the world, because I still like to eat a lot of those things. I like pizza. I like chicken wings. I like hamburgers. But there's a time and a place for them.
Yeah.
So you have to eliminate the amount of food you're having that have those high fats. And I have eliminated some of those high fats with things like avocado, eating whole grains. And as you eat healthier over time, your body tends to adapt to want the healthier foods.
When you find things that you like, right? We were talking about avocado toast. How do you do it? You just mash a little avocado on there?
Yeah, I just literally cut an avocado in half. I scoop it out. I put it on some 21 grain bread, and I'll eat that. The only trick with avocados is sometimes you get the rotten one and it just ruins your day.
Right. You buy a lot of avocados, you're going to have a
You figure out what the good ones and the bad ones are.
Right. But I think the more you do eat healthy, one thing I've adopted into my routine is during the week at work. We work over in Drum Hill, and we're surrounded by McDonald's, Burger King, Panera, and you start looking. I think it's a fantastic change that they put the calories up there. Suddenly you scare yourself. I say, okay, I want 2,000 calories today, and you see, well, that sandwich with this and that's going to be 1,100 calories. So that's half of my food intake for the day. And do I want to do that at lunch? And so I go to Hannaford's. I have a salad. I put a little vinegar on there and a little olive oil. And first it was okay, but after a while I kind of put the right things in there, and actually kind of tastes pretty good. And then Friday's my cheat day, and I go to Chipotle or something like that. But you've even started to do a little education around town, right? You were telling me a little bit about Mediterranean salads and things like that. Is that? Yeah,
we've done some cooking classes in town in the past, and currently we have a Healthy Westford group that I chair, and we're having a 3-part plant-based cooking class that's being run by one of our members, Lauren D'Agostino, and she's doing a great job with that. And the idea of the class is to show people that you can eat healthy, you can eat clean, and you can do it in ways that makes you feel like you're having foods that you want to eat.
And where'd you say that she's doing that?
She's doing that at the Cameron Senior Center.
Okay.
We were canceled because of the snowstorm on Tuesday. We're going to try to reschedule that. We have another one, I believe, next week, and that information you can find on the Westford Facebook page.
Okay.
We have that listed there, and it's, I believe, on our website.
Great. Are there other foods that you've found you particularly have gravitated to that work well into your taste?
I try to find new recipes that are exciting. I like to cook as it is, so I'm looking for things that are very low salt, very low fat, using things like turmeric, a lot of anti-inflammatory foods. I love meat and chicken and things like that as much as anybody else, and I just find ways to eliminate that out of my diet a few days a week to 4 to 5.
Turmeric's actually kind of an interesting ingredient, and I've kind of recently discovered that too. How do you work that into your foods, and where does it work? Because it does. I feel a difference when I eat it.
Oh yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
And I've worked that into a sweet potato turmeric soup that I made. That came out really good.
That sounds amazing.
And it was so good, I was actually taking it some mornings for work. And drinking it out of the shake cups that people make their shakes. Well, I was taking sweet potato turmeric soup in the morning some days, and it tastes good. It fills you up, and it's basic ingredients with just sweet potatoes, coconut oil, which is actually a good fat, and not a huge fan of coconut, but the coconut oil is not too bad. Coconut milk, red onions, get everything in celery, get it all simmered down, and hit it with a hand blender. An immersible blender, and bang, you got a nice, healthy, creamy.
It's pretty easy, quick.
Easy. Took me 25 minutes to make, and I had 5 quarts of it.
That's amazing. The little changes you can make are obviously, the oil. They talk about the Mediterranean diet is the one diet that they will consistently say is proven to work, and that's oils, that's avocados, that's all those little bit of olive oil as opposed to butter, things like that, right? But also, I think what I've noticed too is that when I do eat something that's not as healthy, especially as you get into your 40s. If I ate a hamburger for lunch, I wanted to take a nap at about 2 o'clock. It was like, but if you eat something good, you feel like you
get a little more energy.
You can feel it, right? And so, how are you feeling now? I mean, compared to a year beforehand, are you feeling even better than you did 2 months before your?
I think there's no question. I mean, once I had that surgery and they cleared me up, I did notice that I did feel a lot better. And I think that's one of the most important things is paying attention to how you feel.
Yeah.
If you don't know that you feel good, if you know your body's changing, go get looked at. And know some of your risk factors. I mean, do you have a history of heart disease in your family? If you do, maybe you should get your cholesterol done. If you know what your numbers are, know what your total cholesterol is, as well as your good cholesterol and your triglycerides. You can have a good total cholesterol, but have a very low, you could have a very good total cholesterol and a very low good cholesterol.
Right.
And that's actually a risk factor in itself, and that's dangerous.
Yeah.
So you need to know what those numbers are. You need to know your blood pressure. I mean, 145 over 90 is not good. You want to be in that 120 over 70 range.
Right,
and you
right.
want to know how to get there. Some of the ways to get there is exercise, like you said, the 150 minutes a week. I mean, getting out at your lunch breaks, walking, getting a good brisk walk in. And just, if you're a smoker, can't say it enough in public health, quit smoking.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge risk factor.
The smoking piece is such a huge risk factor on so many levels. You know, at the hospital, we also see the lung screenings and things going on. But you know, for somebody who's just finding themselves having trouble to just change their eating lifestyle, or they're on the run, it's hard to do. They're really, if you take little steps over time, that routine changes, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean, it takes work. It's not easy.
Right.
And I am not perfect. There are days where I fall off that food wagon and there's something I want and I'm going to try it and I'm going to have it.
Yeah.
But you have to counterbalance that with the good days and making sure you're getting the good stuff and the good healthy fats on a regular basis. And I think once your body is trained to eat some of those things,
right.
you actually want them over having some of the other foods that you would normally have. I drink very little milk because I don't think you need it as much anymore. I think there are studies that show it's somewhat of an inflammatory, and I've cut some dairy out. I still like it, but I limit the amount I have to the point where I hardly have any. I don't put any creamers in anything anymore. I try to limit the amount of cheese I eat to an extent. I mean, I'll still like it. Everybody loves a grilled cheese sandwich, but
yeah, my vice is steak and cheese.
yeah, good sandwich.
It's a very good sandwich.
But I limit that. I mean, sometimes if I'm going to have a sub, I'll have a veggie sub.
Right.
And it's good. And like I said, if you learn to like it, it's not as bad.
Well, in life, if we take everything we want, you know, we know that, you know, there's a balance to everything. And when we had talked a little bit about sort of, this has sort of woken you up to the value of preventive things. Are there other things you're looking to do in town along those lines?
Well, I think now that I've gone through this particular episode and now that heart health is a little more important to me than I ever thought it was,
right.
I really would like to reach out to the people that are just a little younger than me, get into your 20s, your 30s, and your early 40s. It's a time when your habits and your body is going to make those changes. Right. And I think it's a really good time to start thinking about, even in your 20s, every couple of years, go get your cholesterol done. Find your numbers.
Yeah.
Make sure you know what your blood pressure is. In your 30s, same thing. You're starting to get into maybe a more professional corporate atmosphere, moving up that ladder. You're not moving as much. Make sure you know what your numbers are. Keep positive on what your numbers, on where you're at, and know what your risk factors for diabetes are, because diabetes will affect your heart as well. And that is hereditary in a lot of families. And when you get into your 40s, do it every year. Just know.
Right. Make the time.
Make the time.
It's funny how we can make time for things that we truly enjoy, but then that hour to go over to your PCP and get checked out and get those numbers done can sometimes feel like a burden. But you know, really, the recommendation is see your doctor every year, get those lab tests done. Again, I'll do a little plug for Circle Health, and that one thing we're trying to do to empower people to get healthy is by putting things like Circle Health Westford. We just opened Circle Health Tewksbury for people who might find that easier access, but there's an outpatient center there. So it's that, got to go get your blood drawn, got to get your tests done. That can now be done. We're trying to make things more convenient, because ultimately, we're trying to bring care there to them, because it's to go into Lowell General or to wherever you have to see your doctor. You say you're from the Fitchburg area, can be a challenge. We have a few minutes left here. I'd love to ask you just a little bit too about what else is going on in town and what are some of the other things that you guys are working on.
Well, currently we're working on updating a lot of our regulations. We have we are a town that follows the 2017 food code. We're in the process of creating our own local food regulation to make sure that all our residents are eating at good, safe places, and we've got a really, really good group of restaurant owners who are very conscientious here. And we do that through quite a bit of education. We do classes, seminars, talks, let everybody know what the latest changes are. We educate on a regular basis. We spend a lot of time with our Title V and septic and well people as well. A lot of things people don't realize is Westford's 100% dependent on groundwater. Wow. So when you drink water out of the tap that's from the town, it comes from a well. If you have a private well at your house, it comes out of the ground. Yeah. When you run your water, it goes into your septic system, and that recharges the groundwater. So we like to make sure that whatever goes into the ground, people understand it's important to make sure you're not putting anything dangerous down the drains, you're maintaining your septic system, and you're just helping the environment by doing smart, safe things.
You guys have always had a very active health department here in town, I know, and a lot going on. If somebody wants to find out a little more about these things, how's the best way to kind of follow what you guys are doing and some of the programs you're doing?
So whenever we have a program, we always make sure we put that on either our Facebook page.
So like your Facebook page?
Yep, like our Facebook page. We put a lot of stuff. We use it weekly. We put out information, especially if there's maybe an opioid overdose that is hitting the greater Lowell area. We let people know that there's something dangerous out there and they need to pay extra attention, especially to family members. They may be struggling, so they can watch them. Right. If there's an event, we'll put it out there. We also put it on our website. We make sure that if you go to westfordma.gov, you can get onto the health department website and see some of the regulations, the programming, and some of the general health notices we'll put out there to let people know what's happening in town.
And you're back full time, right? You're in
back
full swing.
And full swing. Anything people need, we're going to try to accomplish.
Your stamina's pretty good?
Stamina's pretty good.
Do you check your blood pressure a lot?
I check it as much as I need to, and I try to do it about once a month. I don't go crazy, but
the prognosis is good.
Yeah, I mean, it's where it's supposed to be, but got to continually work on it.
But they've told you since the surgery that you should, as long as you do the right things and take care of yourself, that
should lead a full, normal, healthy life.
That's fantastic. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for coming on here. I think when people hear these stories, it wakes them up to the realities of this, that in your 40s this can happen, and it's hard to get through to that younger generation to say, oh, you're not invincible, but just little things can make a big difference, and so we really appreciate you coming on.
I'm glad to be here, glad you had me on, and probably the biggest message I can tell anybody is if you haven't checked yourself and you don't think you're okay, the result of what can happen if you don't, I'm living proof that it's go get looked at, just get your information. There's no need to panic, and the information you get could save your life or prevent you from going in for something like open heart surgery.
Right. It's not a place
I wouldn't recommend it. It wasn't my plan.
Not a good vacation.
So I would find ways to avoid doing that. But I think there's a lot to be learned from what I went through, and I'm glad to share it.
A few steps can go a long way.
Absolutely.
Jeff, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you again on Complete Connected Care.